Hello, my creative friends. Let's go ahead and paint an acrylic style Valentine little sweetheart fox here. I'm going to be showing you how I created this using acrylic paint with a few mixed media elements to add some line work on the end and to add some little extra interest. To do this piece, I started with my line drawing, and if you need help drawing and you would like to have a line drawing, you can come over to my Ko-fi page. This is where I have all of my line drawings available. It's a very reasonable membership to join, easy to join and very reasonably priced, and you can pop over on my Ko-fi page. I'll have a link down inside of the description to show you where you can go over there and take a look. And that's where I'm going to have the tracers there. So the very first step I started with, I traced on my item. I like using a light box. I'm not going to do all the detail work in there. I'm just basically doing the outline first, and then I can go back in and add my details. Now to start with, I used the Bahama Blue. I watered it down just a tish bit, and then I just brushed it over there randomly. That's going to help create some of this little really add to the depth of this picture. You're going to see little pops of that blue here and there popping through by having it all over my piece. And I'm going to start with my light areas now. Since it's pink and oranges is what I'm going to be using, I need to base these areas that have these bright areas of the pinks and the oranges using kind of a lightish color. I'm not going to use white for this area. I'm going to be using this color called Buttermilk is what I'm starting with, and I'm going to be starting with that, and I'm going to base in the colors. So I'm going to use this brown brush. Oh, there's no number on here. It's a little cat tongue brush, I guess is what I want to say. I'm just going to go ahead and put some of this on, and I'm going to be leaving a little bit of that blue showing through there. I want to create kind of a little division here, so when I come in with my area here, I'm okay with leaving some of that blue line showing through because I want to be able to see a little bit of that in the end. I don't go really close this time around because I'm going to be building up my layers, and if I go too close in right away, I'm going to be losing that line. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm moving my brush in multiple directions, not just one. I'm not looking for an even painted look when I get done. So I'm looking for some irregular brush strokes, seeing those brush strokes, and putting that in there. Now this will probably be the area where I'm going to go ahead and speed it up, but you can watch as I'm creating this area. Now that I have the little foxy done in, I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of work on the outside of my area, and I'm going to come in with a darker color. This color is called Deep Turquoise, and that's the color I'm going to be coming in and doing a kind of a slip slap background to it. I have a little bit of water inside of my brush, so it's not super opaque. And I'm going to be coming back and forth and filling in around that oval area. Again, I'm kind of looking for an irregular mark. Here I'm dipping my brush a little bit in some more water. If my paint gets super dark, opaque streaks, that means I need to add a little bit more water to it. So at this stage, I'm just looking for kind of a semi-translucent coloration in there. I'm going to be layering some more colors in, but this is that next step to that next area. I'm also going to be adding this color onto my little fox's her little scarf in there. Couldn't come up with the words. Okay, let's go ahead and fast forward through this part as you're watching. Now to do the next layers, I'm going to be doing this part. So you can see where I'm doing pinks here on the outside of my little fox, and then that orangey colors on the center part. So the next layer I'm going to be doing is kind of a light peachy pink look to it. I'm going to be mixing my pink and my orange together and adding probably a little bit of that buttermilk color first. So I'm going to be starting just a little bit layers of my colors now. So I'm going to speed this up and you can watch as I'm creating it. I'm going to take my paper towel and I'm just going to wipe my brush off, but I'm not really going to wet it. And I'm going to be coming in with a little bit more of my pink. Now this is the color Cactus Flower. And my orange that I was using was called Bright Orange is what I was using for that. I'm going to come in with some of my pink now, and I should have done those ears. I'll come back in and do those ears too. Now you're noticing I'm still doing that random stroke with my paintbrush, and I'm going to be leaving some of those areas still open and not covering up everything that's underneath because I want to be able to see that. So I'm looking for some brush strokes and I'm not trying to cover everything up. I did rinse out my brush, but I'm going to start in with a little bit more light color here. So I'm going to take some of this orange, some of the pink, mix it in there, and then I'm going to take that buttermilk color that we had originally used under base coat it, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to be doing some streaks to it. Now I don't want to lose all that dark underneath there, so I want to be able to see some of it, and I'm still trying to leave ever so tiny bit of a line there, just here and there. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm creating like those little quick strokes. I'll often using the side of my brush when I'm doing this look. Again, I'm wanting to see some movement underneath, and that's why I'm holding my brush and doing these quick little strokes and patterns and changing the direction of my brush. Now for the pink, I'm just going to rub this out. I'm going to come in with my pink this time, and I'm going to take a little bit of that buttermilk and add that to my pink and lighten my shade now. And I'm going to be coming over the top of that next layer. Let's go a little bit lighter. So I'm going to take some of my orange now. This time I'm going to be adding some white to it. I'm going to be adding just a tiny bit of pink in there too. Adding some white. I'm really kind of lightening it up, but it's not totally white. So I'm going to be taking this color now and adding this kind of like a little sherbety color onto my area too. So I'm going a little bit lighter. So this is the next layer. I'm making sure I'm adding some wispiness to it on the outside because that's where her little whiskers are. And again, I'm not trying to cover everything up I already have on her. Now we are going to be needing some contrast in her, and we'll be adding that with some shadows here soon because we don't want everything to be the same. And we have to have some difference in between our heart and our body and our hands and our tail. We're going to be needing some differences there. Let's add it to there. Okay, so now I'm going to be adding just a big pop of color. I want to add just a tiny bit of this fluorescent pink color. This is one of my favorites. If you've been following me any amount of time, you know I love this fluorescent color by Basics, this pink color. I'm going to take a little bit of that color and I'm going to mix some white with it. I want to kind of dull it down just a little bit. You can also take some of your regular pink that you've been using, if you've been using those colors. And now let's go ahead and stroke some of that brighter pink in, and we're gonna see that kind of pop a little bit. So I'm just making little strokes of it and including some of that in. I'm gonna put some of that on her arms too. That's just gonna give that some definition in those areas. Let's add it on her tail too. Okay, this is her body here. Whoa, I got a way too much white in that one. Let's go ahead and add a little bit more of that pink in there. Don't want to go too fast with that pink color. Okay, so now we have that in there. Let's go ahead and add some white to this orange color. So let's pop it up even a little bit more. I'm going to add some of my fluorescent into my orange to give it more of a pop color, to brighten it up. Often sometimes with these acrylic colors, they're really kind of matte and they get matted down. So I'm going to add a little bit of that fluorescent just to give it a pop, even in my orange areas. I want to thin that down just a little bit. I want it to be a little bit lighter. This is a small little painting, so a little bit of paint goes a long ways in this type of application. Doesn't take much. It goes fairly quick because it is such a small little painting. Let's add some up here. Okay, that looks good. Let's put a little bit on the tummy here. See if this brings her to life a little bit more. Okay. Now, because that we need a separation in between our tail and our body, I'm going to make this the dark side. So I need to take some more of that orange and a little bit more of that fluorescent color, but I need to kind of mat it down so I can add a shadow line. I can even take some of the turquoise color here and I can add that to that and kind of come up with I'm adding all the colors and ending up with kind of a little bit of a mud color, but I'm adding that darkness to it. Okay, let's come over here. A bit that way. Okay, so let's add a little bit more darkness to her tail here so that it's behind. So this, I want it to make like this part is popping out and this one is behind. I'm going to take a little bit of this darker color too and add it up here. I'm going to add some to her feet because they would be underneath. I'm going to do this to the inside of her ears, just a tiny bit here. Okay, so that gives it a little bit more difference. Now I want to take some more white. I think I'm going to brighten up her face just a little bit more. So I'm going to take this color, I'm going to add some white to it because I want it to be, I don't want to use just plain white. That would be too bright, but I want to add a lot of white to this orange. And I'm going to add that to her face because I do want it to be a little brighter in her face. So I'm going to come in and add just a little bit more whitish orange color onto that area. There we go. Now we have to do something with this heart. I'm going to come in and add this lightest color here, and I probably should have done that right away to hide some of that blue. The blue kind of mats down the colors too much if you add it right over the top. Okay, so let's add a little bit of that, maybe a little bit of that dark color right here on her hands. Foxes have like a little bit of a mitt on their heart. Now if it was a real fox, this would probably be black, but she's just a pretend cute little fox. So I'm going to add some of that darker kind of purplish color to the mitt of her hand. Let's add some here too. All right, let's add a little bit more white to this heart. Okay, cute. Let's add a little bit of that bright pink to that area too. just to make it pop. I'm going to choose one side, I think, and take a little bit more of this white color here and off to the side and call it good, like that. Now I do need to do her nose. I've kind of forgot about that. Haven't really been paying much attention to it. Let's go ahead and add that darker color that we added as her mitt. Let's do that on her nose. Okay, let's finish up her face. Let's bring it in just a tiny bit more here. I'm thinking I want a little bit brightness here down the center. I take a little bit of my white, stroke that in. She's kind of got this dark spot right here. Probably looks too much like a dot. A good thing to do is sometimes is to stop, take a picture of your item or take a look at what it looks like and see if you need to add a little bit of color or contrast. I'm thinking I need to brighten up this little area here on her tail. So I'm going to take some of this white, mix it a little bit stronger, and let's come in and do this orange part of her tail. Now, every time I do these, they always turn out different. They don't look the same 2 times in a row, but that's kind of the cool thing about it, is that every time you do them, they're going to have a little different look, and you can easily change it. If you have the tracer, that's the good thing about the tracer, is that you can easily retrace your items and then start a little quick painting and do it over if you would like. All right, let's take a look at what I got. I'm thinking I might just stop right there with that part. Now let's go ahead and work a little bit more on the background. I'm gonna come in and take a little bit more of that turquoise color, water it down just a tiny bit, and then let's come in and do another little layer, quick little layer. Okay. And again, I'm not going for that opaque look. I'm just kind of brushing it in. We're going to let that dry. I'm going to come in and take a little bit more of that Bahama blue, and let's add another little quick layer to the background. So I'm going to come in around my ears, and I'm going to kind of sculpt that area. But again, you might want to add a little bit of water to it so it doesn't get too thick and become too opaque. For this quick, loose style. That's what I'm going for, is kind of a quick, loose style. Oops, wrong color. I dipped it in the wrong color. Okay, there we go. Okay, she's looking pretty cute. Now I want to go ahead and add that next layer to the background. I'm going to take my white and I'm going to dip in that. And my brush is already dirty. It has a little bit of that blue in it. And I'm going to come in and do now a little bit lighter, brighter look to it. Off to the side here. I'm not wanting to cover everything up. I still want to see some of those original colors that I have on there. You could also add, if you're finding that you're like losing some of your color, pick up some of that darker color, blend it back in over the top of it. So I'm kind of going for a kind of a slip slap look to my colors, where I want to see some movement in the background. I want to still see those blues, but I want to give it a little bit of texture is what I'm looking for. Now, if you end up with too strong of a harsh of a line work and you want to soften it, let it dry and do another layer, and you can most likely soften it a little bit. Okay, that looks good. I think I'm going to pick up a little bit of the white and a little bit of the Bahama blue, kind of mix a lighter shade, a little bit of white, but not necessarily white, and I'm going to come in and do another slip slap inside of here. So I'm just going a little lighter by mixing some white with my Bahama blue, coming up with a real soft blue, and going around my edge a little bit. Okay, pretty cute, pretty cute, pretty cute, pretty cute. Now let's go ahead and we're gonna do a little bit of shadowing on this piece. So I'm gonna be taking my angle brush here. I'm going to I'm gonna do a water float is what I'm gonna do. I'm going to dip my brush into my water up to the metal part of the ferrule, and then I'm gonna stop right there. I'm gonna take my paper towel and then touch my brush onto the paper towel until I see the shine go away. Then I'm going to dip the toe, that's that pointed end there, in the my brush, only on the toe. And then I'm going to push my brush down to my palette going this way, one way first, flip it over and do the opposite direction. What that's doing is pushing the paint from one end to the other. So you're going to get more of a varied look with this. Now I'm going to come in here to this side and I'm going to go around the edge and create this watercolor shadow float. Now I used this side of my brush this way. Then I flipped it and I used the other side because my brush was getting a little bit offloaded and I couldn't see the color anymore. So I'm going to reload it, tap it, put the end in, brush it one way. This is when I could use a bigger palette. Come this way. And then I'm going to come right up onto my line here and do that again. So I'm going to press it down. And when I start seeing it disappear, I can always flip it over and use the other side of my brush and offload it that way. Okay, so that's just giving it a little bit of a shadow line. Now I'm gonna bump down a size of brush. I'm gonna go down to this size here. I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing. And I'm going to be going around my little foxy girl. So I'm gonna be giving her a little bit more shadow. So dipping my brush in the water up to that metal part, tapping it till the shine's gone, come in with that deeper turquoise color, brush, brush, brush. And I'm going to be coming around my little foxy girl and giving her a little bit of a shadow line around her, giving her some definition to pop off this page a little bit. I usually rinse my brush out in between colors or each time, so I'm going to dip it. I usually rub it on my paper towel, the metal part, so there's not water up there. And then I give it a tap so I don't see the shine, dip the toe in, and then do that little bit that way. Let's come up here, add a little bit shadow. And then hopefully you can see how that's creating that little bit of a shadow around my little foxy girl. I'm going to speed this up as you watch. Whoops, it's the same process all the way around. Now let's take that same turquoise color and let's do a shadow underneath here, underneath the fox area, underneath the scarf. To the end, a little bit underneath there as well. And we will add a little bit underneath this one because it's underneath. This one's the top. Okay, so for the top part, I'm going to mix a little bit of that Bahama blue with some of the white to create just a nice shade of bright, light white blue. That's the color I'm going to use for the top part. So I'm going to come in and take just the corner of my brush, and I'm going to be laying a set of white there. Now that's a harsh drop there, so I'm going to come in and take my brush and soften that color a little bit. I didn't have enough water in my brush, so that's why I ended up getting that bit of bright look to it. Let's do a drop around this heart. So I'm going to come in with a little bit more of my darker orange color this time. It's got plenty of water in it. Give it a tick. Let's do a little bit more of a drop here. And let's do a drop on this side. Top. Now if that becomes too harsh, you can come in with your brush just with water on it and soften that edges just a little bit more. Okay, let's add some little highlights and lowlights on her cheeks. So let's do a little bit of cheek work. I need to find a little scruffy brush if I can find one. always have a, never can find a scruffy brush when I need one. Let's see. Oh, let's use this one. Let's use this one. Okay, so I'm gonna mix a little bit of the pink and a little bit of the white on there. And then I'm gonna rub it on my hand to make sure I can feel when it's dry. And let's do a little bit of blushing on this side. If it doesn't quite show up, and it might not, I might have to add a little bit more color to it. Let's add a little bit of the fluorescent color to it to brighten that pink up. I like to do it on my hand so I can feel when it's dry. When it's dry, then I know I have enough off. Let's add a little bit more of a brighter color. Give a little cute pop of blush to this little cute gal. Okay, cute, 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 as we say in Painting Crafty. All right, let's add a few more details to this little gal. Let's go ahead and add some line work to this little one. So I'm going to be using some, let's use some pens and some markers and all the good things. Let's use a little bit of, if I can find my pens. Oh, here we go. Let's use let's use the 0, 1, and let's do a little bit of line work on this lady. So I'm going to be coming around my items, and just like I do when I'm doing my watercolor, I'm going to be doing that same type of sketch look where I'm doing a double line or even a triple. I'm not looking to follow exact, and actually I want it to be a little bit messy. I don't necessarily have to do everything, not all the way around. Okay, I think that looks cute. Let's add a little bit of white to this little foxy girl. There's lots of ways to add white. You can use the China marker, which is the China marker white one. I really like using this, and I'm going to be using some of that in the background. And there's also the Uniball pen, and I do have my Poscas out, and I might be using some Posca pen work this time, which I did not do on my very first time. But let's go ahead and create a background for this. I wanted it to give kind of a frame look on her. So this time, first time I did it in black. I think this time I'm going to be doing it in white. Let's take a look at what I can create with this white pen. Uniball pen to add a little bit more fine line work, and let's come in and add a little bit more fine. My pen is starting to wear out a little bit here. I sometimes have a problem with these not quite working the way I want them to. It's still a great pen. I'm still always going to have one, but it can frustrate me sometimes because it doesn't want to write, especially if you don't use them very much. I often recommend, if you buy these, just buy what you think you might use, because I think they don't necessarily last very long if you're not using them, or they dry out on you and then they don't want to work. Let's add some line work here. That. Let's add some dots. Okay. Now let's come back in and use my Posca pen, and let's add some paint dots here of white, just to give it kind of a lacy feel to it. There's some tape at the top of there, so you're probably not going to see those ones at the very bottom or the very top because it's going to be out of the picture. Okay, now I'm going to use my Sharpie, and I say this and then I forget about it myself too. Because this has wax in it, there's a lot of things that doesn't want to stick to this. So it's a good idea to use this very last if you think you might be adding different elements on. It doesn't want to, the pens don't want to go over it very well. So if you can wait off until the very end to add this on, that's just going to work better for you. Okay, let's make a little bit of a plaid pattern in the back. I'm going to just do this freehand. I'm going to keep it inside of the circle though. And I'm intentionally kind of doing it a little bit, holding this pencil a little bit farther away. Whoops, that's too far. I broke it because my thing was out too far. All right, so I wanted to intentionally hold it a little bit farther away so it wouldn't be exact. Now I'm going to come across, and when I do it across, I'm going to make sure my lines are a little bit closer to create that little bit of a plaid look to it. So the ones that go across, they're going to be two lines, but they're going to be close to each other. And that kind of creates a little bit of a plaid look. Let's see over here. Might helpful to turn it sideways maybe, because they don't come across, although it probably doesn't really matter too much. It's a very subtle look, because that's the one nice thing about the Sharpie marker. It's a very subtle look. Let's add a little bit to her ears with this. Maybe even a little bit on her forehead. It's just a nice subtle way to add white without really not a super strong color. Okay, I'm thinking she looks pretty cute. Now I did add that that little bit of the glossy accents. I did add that on the other one I did, and that's just going to dry really bright and kind of 3D, which is a fun thing to add to your paintings. Now she looks completely different, and I think the pencil border looks, you know, as different as well too. Now, if you do the pencil work and you do all that, you do need to clear coat it. And let me grab my clear coat real quick, and I'll show you what I use. I used this one, the clear satin. This does have a big end on it, so you need to make sure you're holding it up far enough so you're not soaking your paper. And put some coats of this on there, and that's going to clear all your mixed media items down. So some of these, especially like the pencil marks, those want to move around a little bit, and so it's a good idea to make sure you cover it with some clear coat so you don't have it smearing around so much. Now I'm going to go ahead and take the tape off. This was washi tape that was on the outside of that area. Let's maybe take some of this pink. Let's try that a little bit. Let's add a few little polka dots. Let's add some more work. That's the cool thing too, is that you can always add more if you would want to add a few bit more. After you get it done, you can always decide, I want a little bit more color. So I'm going to take this and add just a few more pink polka dots. Well, that's it, my friends. Thanks for popping in. Remember, you can always go over to my Ko-fi page to see where you can get the tracers for this. I'd love to have more creative friends join me, so definitely check it out. And we'll be popping back in next week for another draw along. Thanks so much. Bye now.